the state capture narrative was a scam in many ways. And I think this Mkhwanazi thing has revealed that, to the extent that it tried to paint that particular moment in history as a especially egregious form of corruption. And it was egregious and it was terrible. But then this bait and switch happened where the same people who were there during the state capture years turned around and said, we are the reformers. And in the state capture era, private interests captured the state. In the Ramaphosa era, the state captured private interests.
Welcome back to the Born Free podcast. My name is Kumalo, and today I'm joined again by my co-host who's been missing, flying in Sweden. How have you been, Otsile?
I'm all right. I enjoyed my European summer, but what the hell have you guys been up to? Like, I get back and all of a sudden our government's owned by criminal syndicates. Like, what's going on, guys?
It's going to be interesting, but we're now being joined by the person who's kind of spurring the way in digital media, kind of defining what the space is, but also giving bombshell interviews, killing the game at the moment. Dr Sizwe Mpofu-Walsh, how are you doing today?
Khumo, brother, very well. Glad to be with you, Otsile. Like what you guys are doing here, and it's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I particularly want to start at the big news that has come out, MKP's vote of no confidence. I think it's very much going to be an interesting point, but it's also interesting because it's now the first time we're seeing MK active in parliament. They're not necessarily engaging with their opposition role as they have historically. Julius Malema tried to kind of claim that space, but now we're seeing quite a lot of legislative work being done, particularly from MK. What do you take of that, and what do you make of what's been happening with MK's movement at the moment?
Well, I think it's fair to say MK is, shall we say, finding itself. It seems to have 1,000 different strands of thought and 1,000 different currents going on at the same time. It's easy to dismiss MK as an incoherent force, and to be sure, there are really incoherent strands of MK, but there are, as I think you allude to, some coherent strands at the same time. So in a recent by-election that just happened in Gauteng, MK got 21% from something like 14, and I'm like, how is MK still growing electorally with all this chaos? You know, and it's a fascinating mystery that we need to unfurl. So I think there is a move, particularly with Dr. Hlophe, to try and take the parliamentary opposition work to the next level. Colleen Makubele in there now, but then we also see these weird moves where they vote for the budget, and you're like, yeah, what's going on? So I think there's a lot going on. It's, as Aubrey Machikri said to me in a recent interview on SMWX, it's a horse that's running in all directions. And some of those directions are interesting, some of those directions are dangerous, some of those directions are downright silly. But this motion of no confidence is interesting because Zuma suffered, I think, 8 motions of no confidence. So he understands what it means to a presidency. And even if the first one doesn't work, it's usually a slippery slope for a president once there's one motion, because this one doesn't work, but then a second one comes, and then a third one comes, and then usually that's how Zuma actually left office. It was the motion of no confidence threat which forced him to resign.
Do you think MK at the moment is capitalizing particularly on what's been happening in KZN and using much of their base to ensure that they can control the narrative and the discourse? Or do you feel as though they actually now start trying to be a good political party in parliament and actually engage in political discourse in a better way?
I think they're trying to do many things, some of which are premeditated, others are just mistakes. The KZN base seems pretty solid. And as I say, they're making inroads in Gauteng, which is quite surprising to me. There was a poll done by the Center for Social Research, I think they're called, and terrible interpretation, but great polling. So I look at the actual numbers. They're like, South Africans don't care about racism. It's like, no, that's just, it might not be the obvious thing, like if you're answering a poll, but it doesn't mean it's not a deeper problem. But yeah, so I look at their polling, and I did so before the election, and I think was able to call the election closer than many last time. And in a recent poll, they had the MK at 18% from 14 again. And I'm like, this is when Floyd is leaving. This is like when there's all this turmoil. So they're growing. It's going to be a race for MK to, will they disintegrate before they get to the next election? But if they do, then they'll grow, and that growth will spur them. So goodness only knows what will happen.
Yeah, a lot of people are quick to reduce MK to Zulu nationalism, and I think sometimes it undermines the nuance that exists, particularly with MK. And we're seeing now in Gauteng in the by-elections, we've seen in recent by-elections that they've done pretty well. Yeah. And at the end of 2024, a lot of people were like, there's a lot of leadership issues that are happening. Floyd Shivambu had recently just left the EFF before he no longer, Floyd. But, but we've seen a lot of MK engage and grow, and people have been unable to necessarily credit it in the media space. It almost feels as if in the chaos, everyone's saying that the party's going to die, they're not going to do well in local elections. But time and time again, we see them improving. What do you think we should be attesting it to? Because on one end, a lot of people will attest it to that the best way to impact the ANC is to vote for MK, because you take away from their vote, you take away from their base, and the ANC has to respond, Zuma still being a major force. But on the other end, there's many people who attest to just Zuma's populist nature and the fact that he's such a popular politician and that the MK doesn't necessarily have much beyond him. So when you look particularly at MK, how do you consider it as a political party going forward into the years of both 2026, the local government election, but also into 2029?
Well, I think all those things are happening at once. I think for sure there is a certain amount of solidarity, and certainly KZN is an MK stronghold, and there is a certain amount of identity solidarity going on. I don't know if I would define it as Zulu nationalism. It's just the same kind of identity solidarity that's in all politics. You know, we don't call DA supporters white nationalists. So there's an identity solidarity that's at some of the core. There's Zuma, who's just popular and popular in places outside of KZN. So there's the Zuma factor. There's the MK message, which, whether we like it or we don't like it, is clearly resonating with some people. And that message is the ANC was once noble. It has deviated under Ramaphosa and turned into something different. And we need a much more decisive break from ANC policies on land, free education, but then also tampering with the constitution and some right-shifting ideas as well. So they've been able to combine, in a similar way to what's happening in other parts of the world globally, combine aspects of right politics, left politics, and put them into a new mix that resonates with people who actually kind of want a bit of both of those things. They might want some left economics with some right social policy. So that's resonating. And at the same time, you've just got the weakness of the ANC like all around us, and people are desperate for some kind of alternative, and they're more willing than ever to try something new. So sometimes they try it with MK, sometimes they try it with the DA, and sometimes they try it with the EFF. But people are certainly, they have the appetite to experiment now because of how desperate the situation seems to be becoming.
I want to shift gears a little bit, specifically within the MK conversation. And I want to speak more specifically to Joberg's election that's coming in 26.
Yeah.
Now, there's been an interesting argument that I've heard being made in political circles that the MKP entering the Joberg election is going to eat from the ANC, eat partially from IFP and EFF, but that it'll divide the vote in such a way that it could pave a way for a Mayor Helen Zille. Do you think this could do more damage to the MKP's mission of being the frontier of the progressive left, if I can put it that way?
Well, I tend to go along with that. I think if Zille runs, and I don't need to say I'm no DA stan, but I think she's going to do well. I think she's going to do really well because Joberg has just been, all but destroyed. And the ANC, quite frankly, is to blame. I mean, they've run Joberg for the longest time since '94. Yes, some others have had interludes, but I think people pin the problems of water, the problems of potholes, the problems of electricity, the problems of basic governance on the ANC. So the question is, what does it mean for the ANC to fall, Zille to rise, and MK to maybe eat into make inroads? What could be interesting is that we could have the DA as the biggest party, but that may force the ANC and MK to talk because now they need each other. So we could have an ANC, MK, EFF, Joberg coalition because they now want to keep the DA out, because the calculus is different in Gauteng to nationally. So that's something we might see. What we also might see, though, is if the DA has a really good election, which I think they are going to at present, they might become more bullish in the negotiations and say, okay, cool, you've given us, if you want to keep this GNU thing, you're giving us mayor of Joburg, you're giving us mayor of this. Oof. Otherwise, we're pulling out, right? So this GNU has to and Gauteng, by the way, is also part of that. So we want Gauteng, we want Joburg, we want or we'll go and form a coalition with whoever we want. So it's going to be interesting, but the ANC, here's the mystery I don't get, right? Why doesn't the ANC just govern a little? Not even a lot. I'm not asking for a lot. Just a bit, so that people are like, because my view is always like, and ANC people might be shocked to hear this because I'm always so critical of them, but the default position of most South Africans is ANC support. And then they let you down, and then you're like, okay, I would love to vote for you, but unfortunately, like, this is just getting bad, right? So if the ANC like just did minimal governance things, it would be so easy for them. And I can't figure out, like, I'm not asking for like turn Joburg into the next smart city, but minimal things, it would be so much easier for them. And I can't figure out why they can't just do the basic things.
But do you think the GNU will survive? Like a scenario where the ANC starts working with the MKP and the EFF and they realize this is maybe more workable than this person that's been threatening to divorce me like since day one.
Yeah.
In that scenario, does the GNU survive, or does Ramaphosa somehow manage to hold it together? Maybe not for his full tenure. I personally am not of the opinion that he'll finish his term, but
Agreed.
If that happens, does that GNU survive in its present context, and what does that mean for 29?
I don't think so. But I agree, it will limp along for a while. It's proved quite resilient to shocks so far, but it's all gonna come crashing down at some point. It's just a question of when, in my view. I don't believe we actually currently have a GNU. I think what we have is, well, I call it a multi-party coalition, but that's just me being pedantic and spicy. But I think the ANC sat back. So here's back to my earlier, why doesn't the ANC just govern? ANC is absolutely terrible at governing and absolutely brilliant at negotiating for power. Because for comrades, it's a full-time job to negotiate. They've been doing this since they were like, in like COSAS and stuff. So like they know how to move the power situation. So I think ANC sat back and they said, okay, the markets need us to have this GNU thing. So we'll have the GNU when the markets need it. But when the markets don't need it, we will have an ad hoc coalition at different times. So we will dispose with the DA and we will vote with the EFF and MK when it suits us. And when it doesn't suit us, we will go back to GNU mode. So the ANC has managed to maneuver itself into this position that it can use the DA when it wants to, and it can use EFF and MK when it wants to. And so we kind of have this shape-shifting coalition. And over time, probably the DA is going to get wise and angry with this, as they already are. And at the same time, in parallel, Ramaphosa's presidency is losing its strength. Because people are just tired of it at the moment. So I do see that we will still have coalitions. There may be multi-party coalitions, but in my view, they're going to continue to evolve and have different parties at different times. And I can foresee a moment when the DA no longer is part of the executive.
I'm curious to know, because this is something I always frame. I always say that the ANC is the most central party that exists in South Africa. The left and the right clearly show that they're not willing to work together, and that's much of the reason why we have the formation of the GNU.
Yeah.
If we look more particularly into the left just for a second, we're also seeing the EFF and MK go at it. And recently, Julius Malema has come out once again to speak out quite strongly against Zuma. And we continue to see this back and forth where it seems like it's a personal agenda, and it seems like these two individuals who once used to fight in the ANC are now just fighting within left politics. A world where the EFF, MK, and the ANC comes together, the major question is who's leading. Because one of the things that is very telling is that Jacob Zuma always attests to the fact he wants to return to the ANC, he wants to make the ANC of old. Julius Malema doesn't necessarily have a vested interest within the ANC, but there's this conversation to say that at some point these people will be co-governing, they will be doing things together.
Yeah.
The reality of it is that there isn't necessarily a willingness to come together, and there isn't necessarily an ability for them to act as a collective opposition as they stand at the moment. So what prospects do we actually give to them coming together and being able to govern? Or do you think it's really just been framed that way because the right has kind of framed itself as the ANC or nothing?
I don't know. I must say it's this balance between like interpersonal animosity versus ideological coherence. So ideologically, the EFF and MK have a lot in common. Also a lot that distinguishes them, which I think this whole idea of the so-called doomsday coalition actually papers over, that somehow the EFF and the MK are the same thing, which they aren't. But they have a lot in common: land, free education, etc. They differ on the constitution. So one would think, if one was just looking at an ideological spectrum, EFF and MK would be similar. Race is another area where they converge. But the leaders literally detest each other more than, like, I'm pretty sure at this point, Julius doesn't like Zuma more than Helen Ziller.
Yeah.
Personally. And that's where politics is a fascinating game between interpersonal dynamics. And I mean, you guys will increasingly see this as you get more and more into the media landscape, but like when you go to the results center, you see that there are personal relationships here. There are friendships, there are animosities inside the parties, between people. So I don't see that interpersonal stuff going away anytime soon. Now, Floyd's departure, in a weird way, doesn't, or maybe smoothens the way, because like the Floyd thing just hit the EFF people in a way that they can't forgive. So let's see. But I just don't see, I think the EFF is playing a waiting game. They want MK to implode so that they can get back to being the main left alternative. So I feel like they're waiting for the MK to implode before they try to unite. And now we'll see. Will the MK implode? Because if they do implode, then the EFF's right back to where they want to be. But if they don't, then it could be a tough election for the EFF in 26. Yeah. Because they don't want to slide again. You can slide once, but if you slide twice, then that's a trend. So I'm not so sure. I think for now the EFF is going to wait and see, and the 26 results I think will determine a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting that a lot of political parties are at the point of wait and see. It almost feels as if everyone's kind of waiting for someone to make a move and waiting for someone to do something.
And the ironic thing is, all we want is for people to act. And
yes. And we recently saw with the appropriations bill, the axing of the Minister of Higher Education. I don't necessarily declare it a DA victory, because they didn't necessarily get rid of corrupt ministers. Corrupt ministers still remain, and much of the fight that they were having, and specifically where John was positioned about getting accountability, you removed one minister, you didn't remove all of them, and there's an interesting conversation around there. But I also think more interestingly, and it's something that you've mentioned before, is that they don't necessarily look at what corrupt minister means. Like Gwede Mantashe has been cited in the state capture stuff, wasn't necessarily a part of that list, and they're unable to necessarily put his name there. When you look particularly at the formation of the GNU and this belief that accountability is the thing that they're going to bring for effective governance, or this like idea that there's going to be clean government, what do you make of it to say about how the DA has been engaging politically? Because as you say, the ANC has been at the strategy thing, been at the negotiating thing. But the big question mark is the DA doesn't necessarily know where it's going, but is also unable to define where the country should be going. So they kind of are sitting in this moment where everyone else around them is making moves, but they continue to be responding to things rather than acting on things.
The DA finds itself in an interesting position. It is in an incoherent position, just like every other party. But it seems to be wagering that all it needs to do is not look as bad as the ANC, because ultimately elections are a relative game. So voters will forgive incoherence if it's less incoherent than the other party. And more or less, again, I think things are going according to the DA's plan. They want to have their cake and eat it, just like every party at the moment. They want to be in government and be in opposition at different times, just like the ANC wants to be in this one coalition and being in another coalition at different times. And when they're in government, they're going to say everything that went right in government is because of us, and everything that went wrong was because we weren't there. And when they're in opposition, they're going to say, hey, see, when we were in opposition, we got these ministers fired and all of that. And I think their voters are more or less going to buy it. Do I buy it? No. I think it's the hypocrisy is eye-watering, quite frankly. but that's the plan that they've made. And, the thing is that the worse governance gets, the more citizens will open their minds to the DA. And I'm getting the sense, I could be completely wrong, but like even people who are very, very opposed to the DA in Joberg, for example, are like, you know what, I hear all this ideological stuff, but this is just bad. Like, let's get Joberg back on track, and then we can get back to our ideology after that. So what they've done in Cape Town is interesting. I mean, you often hear people say, yes, Cape Town is still unequal. Murder rates are still extremely high. Poverty, Gugulethu, Langa, etc., Mitchell's Plain, terrible. And that's all true. But the ANC can't even govern the affluent areas. That's the problem. Like, where you have like a leg up and everything, it's just two potholes on a street.
Yeah.
Hey, you'll be in Hyde Park. This is bad now. So relative to that, the DA is like, okay, structural inequality is still going to exist, but maybe the basics will be done. And that's the advantage they have over the ANC right now. Particularly
looking at the GNU and considering the wider group of parties, you mentioned a very interesting thing about Cape Town and specifically the Western Cape. What we're also seeing is the Patriotic Alliance grow. In the by-elections, they seem to be growing. They just recently won Paarl, or one of the wards in Paarl. This is going to be a very interesting dynamic, both for the GNU, but also just for local and national elections. What do you necessarily make of the fact that actually the PA might sit right in that middle ground of being able to say we're able to address inequality and we're able to potentially govern? Well, things have got tough for them with its recent...
The bandits are doing their thing.
Your words, not mine. I've had the PA bot army come for me. And I was like, that's when I knew they were really organized. Like, so I interviewed Gayton on the SABC, and it was quite a...
that interview was very intense,
it was confrontational, and we were joking in between off camera. He was like, just wait, my people are going to come for you. And I was like, and then like, as soon as like I got home, I just saw my phone, like Patriotic Alliance people coming for me left, right, and center. But we had a cool interview on SMWX, which was different. I think Gayton, I disagree fundamentally with so much, similar to a lot of parties, like his stance on the Constitution, his stance on, and particularly his rhetoric around immigration and all of that just jars. But in terms of political talent, I think he's quite a talented politician in the top tier of politicians leading parties in the country. So I think an interesting thing is going to happen. I think the PA will eat into the DA in the Western Cape, but the DA is going to recover those gains in other places like Gauteng. So they won't be as dominant as they were in the Western Cape, but they will be bigger than they were in other places. So we're going to have a lot of fragmentation in a lot of different places. ANC national dominance is coming down. DA Western Cape dominance is coming down. But at the same time, DA is growing in some other places.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Khumo stole my question there. But I want to get into ANC succession. But before I get there, I want to talk about DA succession.
Oh, yes.
Because their conference is coming up in 26. I think it's the first of the GNU partners that's going to have its elective conference.
Yeah.
And the way I've been seeing it, and we had an episode where we spoke to the political analyst Tara Ruiz, and we're saying we don't think the DA gets any value in returning John Steenhuisen as its leader, because fundamentally there is a mismatch in how it wants to carry itself out and in how its leadership is seemingly framing the party's positions. You have a problem where a minister whose boss is the president is telling his boss, you can't fire one of my employees, but you're saying this to your boss. Steenhuisen obviously being one of the most strongest supporters of the GNU within the DA.
Yeah.
Do you think it's far more advantageous for the DA to keep Steenhuisen on as its leader? Do they get fair value for him? Or should they be exploring different candidates? One of the most prominent, I think, in my mind, being the mayor of Cape Town, Jordan Hill-Lewis.
Yeah.
Someone who is out of the executive, can lead the party out of there. And I think it's better that he's not in the executive whilst he's with the DA in the GNU.
Well, again, I think John has been surprising, because when you look at DA leaders, John has actually delivered quite a lot. I actually agree he's going to be contested, but I'm like, he's delivered them in government. He's done decent electorally, and DA cadres have never been eating so good. DA cadres are happy right now. So on the one hand, and you know, begrudgingly, John can be quite effective, particularly when he goes on the anti-corruption, which he's in some ways been undercut now because he's in the GNU. So I've had to begrudgingly gain a certain amount of appreciation for John and his leadership as a political analyst. Having said all of that, yes, I think he will be contested in 26, and I think it's going to be quite an ugly battle, and it's going to wound the DA. And they're now in the territory of the ANC, where their elective conferences are no longer low stakes, who will be leader of the opposition, but could define what kind of coalition we have. And that pressure always causes internal dissent. I agree. Jordan Hill-Lewis is a candidate. Helen Zilla's there. What's she going to do? Where's she going to be? Siviwe Gwagube, I'm looking at, and I'm like, that would be an interesting move. If the DA came with Siviwe Gwagube, then they'd just dribble all of us. Yeah. Solly Malatsi. So when I look at the DA, I always look at people who are high up in party structures and who have government positions. Because when you get both of those things, it means like, okay, they're deploying you, but you also have senior party authority. Similarly in the ANC, like Agwede Mantashe is high in the party and high in government. So you know they're influential. So I want to see what all those figures are going to do. What's Helen going to do? The word on the street, and as you know, sometimes when you're interviewing people, they'll tell you things off the record. If you don't attribute it,
Chatham House rules.
Chatham House rules, exactly. And there is a divide, you know, apparently, where Zilla is a lot more willing to walk, and John and the ministers, many of them want to stick it out. So that's gonna come to a head in 26. And as you say, just before a local election as well. So the DA needs to be very careful that if that gets too messy, they might undercut themselves going into the election. So we'll see. we'll see. But yes, very interesting times.
I have an interesting follow-up there, because you mentioned they're in ANC territory now.
Yeah.
They're a governing party. Say their best hopes and aspirations come true in 29 and they're able to squabble together enough of a functioning, because there's so many different ideologies that are at play for 29's election, but a functioning coalition, and end up in government. Is the DA necessarily prepared as a party to not fall into the same pitfalls that the ANC fell into? Because you talk to a lot of ANC people. You've had them on your podcast. We haven't had any on our podcast, but we speak to some off the record, and they say, we were good until this happened to us. We didn't do this. It happened to us. Do you think DA people recognize that they're entering a different terrain where the things that made the ANC what it ultimately has become could happen to them? Or are they, in some ways, the way at least I see it from the periphery, are they arrogantly of the opinion that no, that can never happen to us because we are just beyond the pitfalls that the ANC has fallen into? We're nothing like them.
Yeah, I think that's very much the sentiment within the party. But the greatest test is power. In fact, I often marvel at the way the ANC was able to withstand so much during the anti-apartheid struggle, remain organized, fight despite dizzying odds. And then when power and money came, it all fell apart, you know. So who's the DA to think it won't happen to them, you know? But I don't think we're ever going to get to a point where we have another 50+1% party. I think the game is now going to be who can be the biggest party, who can get a plurality, but I don't see us going back to who'll get a full-on majority. So 29 for me is going to be about who can get to 33 or 35%. And we might have a fragmented spectrum where it's 30, and you put the EFF and MK together, and that's roughly 20 or 30. And then, again, the question becomes, do we have a coalition between a much weakened ANC and a strengthened DA, where the DA can call more shots and be like, okay, this time we want the presidency, or this time we want deputy president, finance, and speaker. You can keep your figurehead president. You know? Or do MK and the EFF finally find each other, or some version of that, and then re-merge with the ANC and say, okay, cool, we want deputy president, you can keep president, etc. So, we will probably never have another ANC anytime soon.
Now, my last question on party succession.
Yeah.
2027.
Oh, yes.
Coming up.
Oh,
You've had one of the purported candidates on your show.
I have.
We are yet to see if Mr. Caff himself will show.
Yeah, he might well.
Where do you see the succession race in the ANC going? Who do you think is the leading contender? Because I'm looking at it, and the person who has by far supported every winner since Polokwane, Gwede Mantashe,
absolutely,
the Tiger, he said he's out. He's not contesting. It doesn't look like he's throwing his chips behind a specific candidate yet, though he's known to make last-minute pivots. How do you see the 27 conference panning out? Who do you think is most likely to win? And I think this one's a very low-hanging fruit question, but do you think Ramaphosa survives?
Yeah. My goodness. Let me start with the candidates. So I think Mashadile is the front runner right now. I think Patrice Motsepe it's a serious thing, but he is deciding whether he wants to do it or not. If he does it, I think he'll be a serious contender. You just can't beat having that amount of resources. He's been in the ANC for a very long time, even though not a senior leader. So that's serious. So I would see those two obviously pending Motsepe's entry into the race as the two front runners. Up until this point, it might sound far-fetched, but Senzo Mkhunu was a big name as well.
Yeah.
That I was hearing a lot. So I think a lot of what is happening has now reshifted I was hearing Senzo Mkhunu and Javeni together were thinking of maybe president, deputy president. And Javeni is a very interesting figure right now because she's in the presidency. She's got intelligence under her portfolio. She speaks for cabinet. So she's clearly amassing quite a lot of influence. So it'd be interesting to see where she puts her chips. But yeah, I think there are as many as 6 or 7 still right now. So you've got Mashatile, you've got Motsepe, you've got Senzo Mkhunu, but that's up in the air. Nomvula Mokonyane. Watch Nomvula Mokonyane, because there's a move within the party to say it's time for a woman president.
Yeah.
And she's the most senior woman leader within ANC ranks right now. So she'll be key. Speaking of which, you've got Fikile Mbalula.
Razmatas.
Wants it. Yes, exactly. He wants it, and he's in the mix. So, yeah, I've already named. So it's going to be a Hobbesian war of all against all. It looks like right now, you know. But, yeah, will Ramaphosa survive? Oh, by the way, before I get there, I don't think any of those candidates, barring Patrice Motsepe, who likes Siviwe Kwahube in the DA, I think would dribble, excuse the pun, a lot of I think people who would, like, they'd be like, wait, okay, I was going to run from the ANC, but what if? Do I think it'll work? No, I think the ANC it's irrecoverable, but Motsepe might, just like Ramaphosa did, make people think twice. But that's still distant. Every other name, I think, lowers the ANC electorally from the 39 that they're already at. So we could be talking a 35% party by 29, even lower, depending on how things go. Our beloved president.
Cupcake.
Your words, not mine. I don't... He's not surviving in my mind to 2029. I don't see that happening, because what I'm seeing now is I'm seeing momentum building in a very similar way to the way it built against Zuma. Cupcake is one judgment away from resigning. If that Concord judgment about Phala Phala goes the wrong way for him, like...
It's over.
So, it's time. But I'm not convinced it will. We'll talk about the Concord one of these days, but yeah, they're very conservative for some reason when it comes to holding this particular president accountable. So I think he muddles through probably until the conference. Right now, my best guess, barring like a shocker or Mkhwanazi coming out and being like, Ramaphosa's involved, then game over. Or if at the commission, where I think he should be a witness, if he gets cross-examined very badly, and the commission reveals he knew stuff about this criminal syndicate and he didn't act, then I think he's gone. But if he survives, I think after the conference,
He'll be out.
Will be out, and we'll have a reorientation, and probably somewhere between 27 and 29, he packs his bags.
Yeah. An interesting dynamic has evolved as a result of General Mkhwanazi, which I thought media hasn't paid much attention to, but I think it is an interesting development. Particularly Fikile Mbalula at SG. When the announcement was made or the allegations were made, he initially wasn't sure if he was to defend the line or if he wasn't. Going 2 weeks later, he's defending Senzo Mkhunu almost through and through.
Oh, okay. I haven't even seen that.
And they were speaking about the step away in the ANC and that policy coming through. And he was like, no, he's still going to fulfill his role, fulfill his duty.
Yeah, sure.
But also then looking back, in 2017, a lot of people forget that Cyril Ramaphosa mentioned Senzo Mkhunu as his SG. That was his preferable candidate.
Absolutely.
So there's definitely a close allyship that exists between Ramaphosa and Senzo Mkhunu, and Fikile Mbalula has been known to toe the party line, particularly under Cyril Ramaphosa. What do we make of this three-headed piece that's been moving? Because what I think is interesting is that as much as the allegations have been a big thing in the Commission of Inquiry, which we don't know if it's going to be public or not as of this moment, there's a lot to be gained and there's a lot to be lost if either one of them are implicated. Of course, Senzo Mkhunu is now running, no, I wasn't an associate, he was my comrade, trying to differentiate between the two. Cyril Ramaphosa very much holds the cards in whether or not this thing is going to become public. And the SG's known that he's running potentially for presidency. All of these three people within this dynamic seem to be protecting each other in ways that we haven't historically seen other ANC individuals protect each other. So where do you necessarily frame it in the conversation of where the party is moving forward? Do you think that there's actually more to be said, particularly by these three, and in the fact that they've delayed the NEC, that there actually is a lot more thinking going in the Cyril Ramaphosa camp to say that we actually need to define what the ANC party line is? Or do you think there's just a part of them that's trying to delay as far as possible to ensure that none of them are implicated?
Well, I think the ANC was completely blindsided by General Mkhwanazi's press conference. And it has, every so often a defining thing happens in politics and you're like, wow, this is a game changer. The last time I said that was the formation of MKP, where I came out, I did an analysis video and I was like, because you'll remember people were like, what's this? It's December, like what's Zuma doing? Bro, I was like, this is going to change stuff. Also, when you work in digital media, you get to see what people want to hear and what they want to see. And there's quite a big data set now in South African digital media. Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, is insanely popular in South Africa.
Yeah.
People absolutely love and adore him because he has everything that we are waiting for right now. We have this government which can't decide whether it wants to go left or go right, so then it tries to do both. and the car just stays still, And then Mkhwanazi comes out and he says, screw all of this. We're going this way. I'm telling you what's happening. No more protocol, no more coalition talks, no more secret backdoor deals. This is what's happening, and we need to stop it right now. And shout out to Mkhwanazi for reading the national mood as well. So he has put the ANC in disarray because up to this point, all of the stuff was backdoor and, hush hush.
Yeah.
So what happens? Well, the ANC, its prime source of capital up to this point has been Ramaphosa's aura. And now suddenly, I haven't seen it happen so quickly. Like that aura has just disappeared virtually overnight.
Yeah.
And when that happens, then people in the ANC start thinking, okay, so now I need to start moving and shifting. So I think what you're going to see is that this commission is going to be the final nail in the Ramaphosa aura coffin. It's going to start it's going to end in the local government elections. They're going to have a bruising election. And then we're going to go to the conference where, as I say, I think after that, his days are numbered. Now, Mbalula will basically go wherever he thinks the wind is blowing, I think.
Yeah.
Senzo Mkhunu, I really do believe, has been so bruised by this that I think he's damaged goods. And so I don't know about that campaign, to be honest. I don't see him challenging a Mashatile right now. It could have happened before, but yeah, I don't see it happening going forward. So really, I think the ANC is scrambling. I think they don't know what Mkhwanazi knows. They don't know what's going to come out of this commission. And to his credit, I must say, I was reading the terms of reference. Ramaphosa has put together a commission that if Justice Madlanga and company do their work really well, I don't think we're ready for how damaging this is going to be. The terms of reference are I want to know if anyone in the national executive has been part of this infiltration. anyone in the judiciary. I want to know anything in the SAPS. Like, just look at the last, when did Mkhonto make this? Was it 2 weeks ago?
It was like 3 weeks ago, yeah.
3 weeks ago.
Look at the last 3 weeks. Like, people are scrambling, running. Kenny Kunene is being found. It's just, it's an earthquake, yeah. And we'll look back on this moment like that's when things change. Exactly how they're going to change, I'm not sure yet. But as I say, I continue to think Mashatile is the front runner. I think in all of this, he's just sitting back. He's staying in government, but he's also kind of positioning himself slightly outside the Ramaphosa camp. And I think unless Motsepe gets in, people will ultimately rally around him, and maybe he'll strike a deal with Malula to be like, you're still relatively young, you can be my deputy, and then, you have a path.
It's interesting that you say Mashatile is kind of in the background, because what I'm curious to know is a lot of this has focused in on Gauteng, and Mashatile's allies have historically been in Gauteng and have been able to gain a lot of power, gain a lot of resources in those spaces.
Yeah.
We're unclear as into what could come out of this commission inquiry. But what we do know is that Gauteng is the epicenter, and more people are being allegedly involved in this. There's a lot, I think media at the moment is doing guilty by association, but that's my own belief. But with this commission, and particularly with how hard media is hitting at this, do you not necessarily believe that there's a world in which the ANC in Gauteng is uncovered, the entire thing, which is to say, the corruption that's existed, that we've known of since state capture, a lot of the looting that's happened specifically in the tenders, all of that stuff is going to come out, and there's going to be a question of who was giving the directive, who was necessarily there. And we at least know Ramaphosa, from what we know now, has been very far from Gauteng, hasn't necessarily done too much. The person that at the moment has the biggest influence, has the biggest control, would be Mashatile. And would you not say that potentially there could be a fear or a risk of something coming out that could make it impossible for him to also potentially run for presidency?
Now you're taking him into controversial waters on so many issues. So, number one, as I mentioned recently, being accused of corruption is not necessarily an impediment to an ANC leadership campaign. Sometimes it's actually a badge of honor. And we saw this with Zuma, like in the 2007 campaign, when I was your age. Zuma was accused of just all kinds of things, but what he was able to do was successfully convert that into a persecution campaign. So Mashatile might do that, Senzo Mkhunu might try that, but I don't think Mkhunu is popular enough to do that. So that's why I think he's been defined by this before he could define himself. Whereas Mashatile, within the ANC, is known and has been around for ages and has the ability to do that. He could be damaged, but let's see. But I did want to say something about state capture, because looking back at it, the state capture narrative was a scam in many ways. And I think this Mkhwanazi thing has revealed that, to the extent that it tried to paint that particular moment in history as a especially egregious form of corruption. And it was egregious and it was terrible. But then this bait and switch happened where the same people who were there during the state capture years turned around and said, we are the reformers. And in the state capture era, private interests captured the state. In the Ramaphosa era, the state captured private interests. The state captured media. The state captured capital, and it said, you will come along to our agenda. And kudos to Ramaphosa, because boy, did he capture media and capital. He was like, give me all your money, write positive things about me and never criticize me. I will never come for interviews, but you will keep saying that I will save the country. And for like 4 years, everyone who had money and all media, powerful media, were like, okay, we'll give you time and space to do what you want to do, because we believe that there will be this big turnaround. And what happened? Corruption continued, governance got worse, the ANC'd, and
ANC became a verb.
And now we turn around and we're like, hold on a second. So what happened was that a bunch of very smart people in the ANC were like, they saw the state capture narrative and they saw an opportunity. And they were like, ooh, hold on. If we can convince everyone that there are these two ANCs and we are the good part, don't worry about us having been there during the state capture time. That's all. We had our earphones on in the cabinet meetings. And then we know that we will insulate ourselves from scrutiny because we are not the bad apples. So what happened in the ANC? Leaders, corrupt leaders, started realizing, oh, if I align myself with Ramaphosa, no one will ask questions about me.
Yeah.
Hello, Senzo Mkhunu. Mbalula decided, oh, what? If I just support Cyril Ramaphosa, no one... Remember how he became clean? Like, he became this interesting figure in the GNU negotiations and stuff. Why? Because people... Mandashe was the biggest Zuma supporter you've ever seen. He defended Nkandla. He defended the fire pool. He defended the Waterkloof landing.
Him and Zizi putting out fires left, right, center.
And then state capture narrative, blah, blah, blah. And then suddenly when Mandashe became a Ramaphosa supporter, everyone was like, but he's a good guy. Come on, he's one of the good ones and all of that. So the ANC subverted the state capture narrative, confused people for 4 years, and now Mkhwanazi has made us realize that in some ways this corruption is a long continuation of everything that's been happening. And you can't separate the good ANC from the bad ANC. You can't carve out the slice of the cake that you like. It's all one cake.
I want to say thank you very much. Thank you for your time. This has been insightful. I guess to everyone else, they need to go keep watching SMWX because you're absolutely killing it. The analysis has been amazing. And for everyone else out here at Born Free, thank you for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And peace out. Thank you.
Like, share, comment, Born Free podcast everywhere, YouTube, all podcast platforms, right?
Yeah.
What's our next milestone?
Our next milestone is actually, this is going to come out on our new channel. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so make sure you head over to that new channel. Really appreciate what you guys are doing. Liking what you guys are doing. Keep going. It's insightful. And I look forward to, seeing you grow and build within this digital media landscape. So let's do this thing.
I feel like after that I need to say, yeah.
You need a tagline, boys.
Yeah.
ANC going ANC, no.
But everyone, thank you for making it this far. And that's been us, Born Free.